I told you last week, faith, hope, and charity is really kind of a theme to be able to fix us, but they've been perverted, faith, hope, and charity. Right now we're talking about charity from the government. What they're expecting you to believe, your hope, will come from a deep-seated faith that the government will be charitable. How stupid do you have to be? David Barton, Judge Andrew Napolitano, and David Buckner are with me. I want to spend some time now with David Barton because, David, I'm under attack. I don't know if you've noticed. I'm under attack now from the quote-unquote Christian community.
Right.
It's not the Christian community. It's the progressive community covering themselves or wearing the mask of Christianity. Right or wrong?
Agreed.
Okay.
That the religious left community is more concerned about government. I'll say this so you don't get in trouble. They're really more concerned about government than they are about scriptural truth or even about God helping people.
Okay.
They want government to be the mechanism.
Right. Now, my theory on these three things, faith, hope, and charity, is that they have been rotted from the inside.
Yeah.
Hope comes from truth, and you don't believe anybody in Washington anymore. Charity comes from the individual, and we're rotting that from the inside. And faith, back in the 1800s, and if you will explain, because there are a lot of people that engage in social justice, and they think, oh, no, I'm supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to. But it's a very clever trick that has been played on many Americans because they don't know its roots. Can you go there?
Yeah, social justice is a good thing, but the deal is that it's to be handled by churches, synagogues, and individuals, not by government. There's no problem with social justice. It's who delivers.
Correct.
And that goes back, really the social justice movement goes back into the 1840s, 1850s. A group came up in America called the National Liberal League. Great group to read their platform. They came out with presidential planks and platform, and it sounds exactly like today. Well, at that time, they're way in the minority. People said, no, because their plank said, to have this, you have to be secular. And we have to make government secular. We have to make government the provider. Church can't be the provider. The only way we can do that is to make people think secular, and then they'll think government rather than church. So they move into this liberal thing that says we got to be secular. They went through and some great hearings that went in Congress in 1853, 1854 on this issue. Should we be secular and should we do this kind of? And Congress, Judiciary Committee overwhelmingly said no. 16-page report, really cool historical report. You get into the 1870s, 1880s, and a guy named Robert Ingersoll picked this up. And Ingersoll started saying, well, you know, we've got to erect the temple of reason. We have to get rid of religion and go to reason. And so he's really the precursor to this progressive stuff that happened.
And didn't he say that this is not a short-term plan?
Oh, no.
This is what I've been saying is all of these things have been rotted. Cleverly, slyly, like smoke, they come in and then they rot from the inside. Didn't he say, guys, if you're looking for a quick change of America, this ain't it. This is progress, step by step.
He said back in the 1870s, 1880s, he says, this is our plan for America. Now, it's going to take us 60 years to get here, but it's worth the haul. And so back then, they were making 60-year plans on how to move the government more secular and get the government bigger, and that was part of progressivism. And you see it start popping up in the 1890s. You see it in law schools. Christopher Columbus Langdale, progressive at Harvard, says, let's don't use absolutes. Let's get away from Blackstones. We'll go into case law. You see Dewey do the same thing. You've already documented how the presidents from Teddy to Wilson, etc. It starts popping up. But they planted this back in the 1880s, and they said it'll take us 40 years or 60 years to get this done, and that was exactly right.
And now we're kind of in the final phase of it. The only time I ever hear a liberal use Thomas Jefferson is on progressivism.
Right.
Say, oh, Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine. But this is essential for people to know, and I've talked about it before on the program. It's the difference between the rights of men and the rights of man.
Yeah.
It's the difference between the French Revolution and the American Revolution.
Right.
And Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson were either both fooled or they admitted, correct me if I'm wrong, they admitted later they were wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's true. And what you'll find is even with Thomas Paine, that we use so much as a secular guy, and the secular left loves to use him, what they'll never point out is that he went to France after their revolution. He watched their revolutions and said, you know, this didn't turn out the way we thought. We thought we could educate morality through education. We cut religion out. In France, as soon as they had the revolution, they changed from a 7-day work week to a 10-day work week to purge the mind of the people from any concept there might be a Sabbath or something religious. Well, you have Paine going to France in 1797 and jumping down the throats of the public education system in France, say, you guys are all screwed up because you're not teaching creation science. And he literally went into all this stuff that if you don't teach the Creator, here's going to be the result of your government. So here's Paine with the change. You have
He went to jail for it.
Oh, he did. And he got in trouble with the French Revolution and you know, tried to get Washington to get him out. So he got in trouble with it. But there's a change with Paine. And I think part of it actually came from Ben Franklin, because Franklin jumped Paine in 1790 and said, you know, Thomas, you're saying that secular does all this stuff, and you claim to be religious, and you claim to have integrity and courage and loyalty, and you say that you have it without religion. He said that may be what you think. He said, but you have to remember you were raised in religious schools and youth, and that's where you got all your values, and that's where you got your thinking.
Let me give, this is the most outrageous quote. If any politician would ever say this today, it would be such an outrage, but I believe it to be absolutely true in context. Please put up the quote of Benjamin Franklin on charity.
Yeah.
Do you have it? Here it is. I think the best way of doing good to the poor is not making them easy in poverty, but leading or driving them out of it. In my youth, I traveled much. I observed different countries that the more public provisions were made for the poor, the less they provided for themselves, and of course became poorer. And on the contrary, the less that was done for them, the more they did for themselves and became richer. Benjamin Franklin said that. You say that now, and it's absolute heresy.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to let these three kind of duke it out here in just a second. We'll talk about healthcare and education and what they are ramming through and what it means for the future of America. Next.